He's at war with woke.
Joe Concha
thinks liberals are a joke.
Joe Concha.
This is the Joe Concha Show, weekday edition, sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Here's Joe Concha.
And welcome, everybody, live on this Thursday night from Boston, Massachusetts. But enough about me and my whereabouts. President Trump currently doing an Oval Office speech that Senator Moreno of Ohio says will be the most important address from the Oval Office we have seen since the Cuban Missile Crisis. Much of it centering on election integrity. ABC and NBC refusing to carry this speech for reasons, well, we know the reasons why. Because maybe after they played an active role in making sure that everybody was shut up if they ever questioned the 2020 election. Again, Joe Biden, 81 million votes, the most of any presidential candidate in history, easily. And there aren't any questions around that? Nope, not supposed to ask any questions. It was a free and fair election under the guise of COVID and mail-in ballots and all these things that we know can be manipulated. Let's put it that way. Anyway, let's hear from the president live now.
Roots of that labor very, very shortly. America is back and doing really well, but we still have a major challenge that must be urgently addressed because no country can be great without fair and honest elections. You have to trust your country because if there can be no trust, there can be no greatness. And that's very simple. No trust, no greatness. For many years, I've called for bold, swift, and decisive action to protect the integrity of America's elections. Every American deserves to know that when they cast their vote, that vote will be counted accurately in a system, and that is to make that system secure. One where cheating and interference are not just difficult, but virtually impossible. Unfortunately, the system we have today falls catastrophically short of that standard. Tonight, I'm announcing the immediate declassification and release of critical intelligence revealing shocking vulnerabilities in our election infrastructure. This evidence shows that the election system we have dangerously exposes and really exposes like levels never thought possible to hacking, exploitation, and foreign interference. Just as disturbingly, this vital information has for many years been covered up and hidden from you, the American people, our beautiful, our great American people. But that all changes right now. The documents we will release starting tonight have been gathered by the White House Government Transparency Task Force, a great group of people, along with the staff of the President's Intelligence Advisory Board, supported by our top intelligence agency chiefs, who have all personally reviewed the findings. We are presenting this evening and fully confirmed their authenticity. You can see these documents for yourself at whitehouse.gov. That's whitehouse.gov. Go check it out. Our purpose in disclosing this information is not to weaken confidence in election, but to earn that confidence by confronting vulnerabilities and correcting them very, very quickly. And that's what we're doing. The documents cover 5 major areas of concern. First, they show that over a period of years, starting during the 2020 election cycle, the People's Republic of China carried out what is believed to be the largest compromise of election data in history, resulting in China's illicit acquisition of 220 million U.S. voter files. That information includes names, addresses, phone numbers, political party preferences, and other sensitive data that would be needed to register to vote and engage in other nefarious activities, which is exactly what was happening. This data loss presents an unprecedented election security nightmare. The intelligence even shows that China assigned a data exploitation unit specifically to this new project. Compounding the travesty, the second set of documents we are releasing reveals that members of the deep state, very, very famous group of people, in many cases, in our intelligence agency worked to actively suppress and downplay information about the extent of China's sinister election meddling, covering it up from both the president and the American people like nobody thought was possible. U.S. spy agencies began learning about the compromise of voter registration files in 2020 when they discovered that tens of millions of voter data, think of that, tens of millions of voters' data in 18 states have been bought, stolen, or hacked by China. Yet those responsible for sounding the alarm instead kept the information secret and hidden. They did not disclose to me as president or to anyone else, and to the best of our knowledge, they did not inform Congress. In fact, all they kept saying is, this is the most secure election in the history of our country, a standard, very pat line that was divvied out to say. The cover-up of this colossal security breach is even more disturbing in light of the additional information showing that China engaged in other election-related activities to undermine my first administration and our 2020 campaign. They did not want, and they just didn't want it. They fought like hell not to have it, Donald Trump, to win, and for good reason. As the documents we are releasing show, CIA reporting explicitly stated, and I quote, in mid-2018, the Chinese Communist Party's policy was to leverage all domestic and foreign elements that were opposed to the U.S. president in an effort to reduce the U.S. president's votes and make him resign or prevent his re-election. Isn't that nice? Also, in mid-2018, China was working to influence the results of the U.S. midterm elections and later the results of the 2020 presidential election itself. Separately, in mid-2019, the Chinese government's strategy against the United States was focused on undermining domestic confidence in the U.S. president. They wanted to just make you sound like your president wasn't so hot, when actually your president has done a great job, and they did everything possible to do exactly that. Going on, this document says, and this is by the CIA, the strategy included efforts to use Chinese contacts with big U.S. companies to influence U.S. business leaders to turn against the President of the United States of America. The Chinese government sought to identify U.S. journalists who had reported negatively on the U.S. president and pay them large sums of money to write more negative articles about him, as many as they could, and they didn't care what they said. The Chinese government wanted U.S. president to lose the next election, and the reason they wanted me to lose is because they knew I was wise to them, charged them billions and billions of dollars worth of tariffs, and built the strongest military anywhere in the world. We have the strongest military anywhere in the world. These are exact quotes from the CIA reporting. The name of the person doing the quote is now under review, but it gets even worse. Raw intelligence obtained by the FBI in 2020, yet buried by rogue bureaucrats, stated that China's activities even included an attempt to manufacture illegal ballots for Joe Biden. Documents show that during this period, dozens of significant CIA and NSA reports about China's election targeting were kept out of the presidential briefing. These were briefings I would get almost every day. Everything was kept out that was of importance. One email among intelligence analysts admitted that they had, quote, deliberately massaged the presidential daily briefing to withhold information regarding Chinese activities related to the election. Another official inside the FBI wrote that she was running, quote, a shadow government, unquote, to keep intelligence about China's election meddling from becoming known and to keep it away from the honorable press. Other officials who witnessed such efforts perceived the motivations to be blatantly political. Recently, we found significant numbers of burn bags in formation, and this is a group of bags that were used to destroy information given by President Barack Hussein Obama to be burned. It was supposed to be burned. These bags were supposed to be at a different level by different people, incinerated and checked, but it never happened. Maybe we got lucky. We believe this was not done on purpose, but rather through gross incompetence of the people that were supposed to burn the bags. But the findings are stunning. Today, I'm asking the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the Department of Justice, the FBI, and the CIA to investigate how and why such crucial information was hidden, to fire those involved in the cover-up, and to file criminal charges, if appropriate, against these people. Yet concealing China's meddling was only the beginning. The third set of documents we are releasing proves that for many years, Americans were blatantly lied to about the security of our election infrastructure, including electronic voting machines and ballot counting systems. Dishonest, almost all. They're vulnerable and they're easily compromised, and people within our government knew that. Tonight, we're publishing a series of previously classified U.S. intelligence community assessments and other reports proving that our government has long known these machines are extremely exposed to attack. As one assessment states, we judge that the United States adversaries, including at a minimum Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, as well as non-state groups, have the capability to compromise U.S. election infrastructure. That's unquote, but that's some statement, isn't it, made by supposedly great patriots of our country. The document goes on to further state that, quote, we assess that centralized election-related data repositories, such as voter registration databases, poll books, and other official election websites, are most vulnerable to exploitation, and adversaries could use this access to these systems to disrupt election processes within the United States of America. Tonight, we're releasing all of those findings, and spanning from January 2020 to June 2026, this is a cyber threat aimed at the very heart of our democracy. Many people have questioned whether it could actually be possible to electronically manipulate vote totals or change election results on these terrible machines. Today, we are releasing documents that show the CIA obtained reporting of a specific plot to do a big number in favor of the corrupt Maduro regime in Venezuela. And that's exactly what happened, conspiring to digitally rig their own country's elections in 2020, and that's what they did. This reporting included precise details about methods to regime develop to digitally alter vote totals in ways that could not be detected even with an audit, no matter how deep they went. This intelligence underscores why we must take urgent action to ensure that our own system can never, ever be hacked or compromised like it was in the past. The fourth set of documents reveals that even when significant evidence of fraud has been detected, it has been buried and covered up. Among the disclosures tonight are FBI files detailing evidence of alleged fraud by a large-scale voter registration operation in Michigan. In 2020, Michigan State Police raided a Democrat Get Out the Vote organization, corrupt group in Muskegon. And we're so concerned by what they found. They were just so concerned. They couldn't believe it, actually, that they contacted the FBI in Detroit. The documents state that some canvassers admitted to FBI agents that they signed voter registration forms in other people's names, submitted fraudulent registration for people who did not exist, and received gift cards tied to their number of applications that they produced. In other words, it was pay, play, and cheat.
And we are listening to the 45th and 47th President of the United States outlining what is pretty devastating allegations against China. Let me read this real quick. China engaged in other election-related activities to undermine my first administration in our 2020 campaign, Trump said. They did not want, and they just did not want it, him being elected. They fought like hell not to have it Donald Trump to win, and for good reason. As the documents we are releasing show, CIA reporting explicitly stated, and I quote, in mid-2018, the Chinese Communist Party's policy was to leverage all domestic and foreign elements that were opposed to the U.S. president in an effort to reduce the U.S. president's votes and make him resign or prevent his re-election. Again, this is based on a CIA report, not Trump just saying, hey, I won that election and, the whole thing was rigged. This is based on CIA reporting 220 million voter information. It has now, according to Trump, according to the CIA, was hacked by the Chinese. And this is a national security nightmare. And Bernie Moreno, the senator of Ohio, was exactly right. This is one of the bigger addresses you will ever hear at the Oval Office, at least since the Cuban Missile Crisis. And here's the thing. ABC, NBC, CNN are not carrying this speech. But they'll provide analysis afterwards. I'm sure they'll just poo-poo the whole thing. By the way, if Russia absolutely hacked the 2016 election, well, then we probably should be concerned if China, where we have actual evidence of it, hacked the 2020 election. Oh, yeah, that's right. Trump didn't win that one, so this thing will be dismissed by legacy media. That is a guarantee. Anyway, this is Joe Concha. This is the Joe Concha Show. Back with so much more in just a moment.
This is the Joe Concha Show, weekday edition, sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Here's Joe Concha.
Welcome back, everybody. All right, the big news. President Trump announces that China obtained 220 million U.S. voter files and that the American intelligence agencies covered it up since 2020. He calls it the largest compromise of election data in history. Yeah, this is true. I'd love to see how the network is going to spin this. All right, this is based on CIA reporting, declassified information, not Trump's allegation, but there's some real teeth here. Boy, it's going to be interesting to see the reaction. This is Joe Concha, back with so much more in just a moment.
This is the Joe Concha Show, weekday edition, sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Here's Joe Concha.
And welcome back, everybody. So, it's happening. Yes, we may have President Don Lemon as the 48th Commander-in-Chief of these United States. Well, okay, he thinks that could happen. And he keeps repeating this line that a lot of people are telling him that he should really run for president. The guy who couldn't keep a job at CNN wants to run the country. Boy, the ego and the hubris on this guy is off the charts. Cut number 3, go.
Political ambition, is that true? No, but people keep asking me if I'm running for president. And I don't know, I might. I'm serious. I don't know. I might because people keep asking me to do it. I actually think I would be a really good president of the United States. Okay, like you're being serious. No, I'm being totally serious.
So what would it take?
For the people to want me.
Oh, they're not going to want you. CNN viewers didn't want you, Don. The guy had a primetime show. Then they lifted him off of that. Then he was on mornings for about 6 months. And then here's the irony. He said that Nikki Haley shouldn't be running for president. This was in 2024. Because she's past her prime, unquote. Then he went on to argue that only women in their 20s and 30s are in their prime. So since Nikki was something like 54 years old when she was running, well, therefore, past her prime. Well, Don Lemon's in his 60s. So I guess he's really, really past his prime. But people keep asking me to run. He says, what people? Name one name, because I've never seen it or heard it. But that's what keeps him in the news. And I guess he's on this show. He played a clip. And he'll probably run because he's such a narcissist and wants the attention so much that, and has zero integrity. Like he can make a complete fool of himself. And it won't matter because as long as his name is in the paper, so to speak, he's getting headlines. That's good enough for Don Lemon at this point. Anyway, AOC, I don't say this very often on this show, but I agree with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez because she says, and she's right, who cares if she's a Democrat socialist. This is just some common sense stuff around how lawmakers just can't go missing for months without letting anybody know. And that's Tom Kean Jr. in New Jersey said he was suffering from depression and he got help for it. And that's great. But he probably should have said something instead of disappearing. And no one knows where he is. And it's very easy with Twitter, very easy with a cell phone. You could do one interview and say, look, I'm getting treated for depression. When I'm ready, I'll come back. And he didn't do that. He explained the prognosis after the fact. And that shouldn't happen, right? You're elected to serve, and then you go missing for 160 days. I mean, it's incredible. 120. My math's a little bit off today. And then obviously Mitch McConnell just, all right, I guess he's in the hospital. Oh, he just sent out a photo of himself smiling. Well, maybe he's not, he's incapacitated. If you criticize Biden, then you have to criticize McConnell, who should have retired years ago. And obviously he literally had a stroke on camera. That ain't good. That should have been like the sign. And where's the family? Where's the family saying, Uncle Mitch, Grandpa Mitch, you got to go. Take care of yourself. And it's happening all over again. These people stay until literally they are dead. And it's just, I'm sorry. It's not good for the country. Anyway, here's AOC on the whole matter. Cut number 1, go.
People can just go missing without explanation. Not just Mitch McConnell. You had another member here that was just gone for 4 months and didn't tell anyone where they were, no whereabouts, no transparency. I mean, this is it. I don't even know how this is legal. I really don't even know how this is legal. Things do happen. You know, people get into medical incidents. If you're in the hospital, you're in the hospital. But I do think that there should be some sort of, there's a line here. And I think almost everyone can agree that it's been crossed. This is not normal. This is not normal.
That's good, Kev.
At all.
So, all right. So the only problem here with AOC is that until the bitter end, until he dropped out, she continued to insist that Joe Biden should have been the nominee even after that disastrous debate in Atlanta against Donald Trump on June 27th, 2024. So got to be consistent in these situations, AOC. And she defended Biden, defended his obvious mental decline, said it wasn't a problem, cheap fake videos, all that. So it's easy for her to criticize here because it's 2 Republicans that we're talking about. But when the shoe was on the other foot with not a senator or not a congressman, but literally the president, you probably should have been calling for him to step down as well. Anyway, this is really getting crazy here with the whole socialism thing. And Gavin Newsom is somebody who really, really, really wants to be president, to the point where he will say anything to appease whatever group he needs votes from. So now he's bear hugging the socialists. And now he's gone from the guy who, always called himself a capitalist to saying, well, capitalism doesn't work. Well, that's a hell of a campaign slogan. Cut number 4, go.
Something's fundamentally broken here. And that wealth is creating power locking in rules and regulations, locking everybody else out. You can't play in the margins anymore. We can't fail more efficiently. Certainly nostalgia is not working. I would argue socialism not going to work. But capitalism as we know it doesn't work either.
It's just like, he's like the Seinfeld of politicians. All just these long sound bites that signify nothing. All right, so socialism isn't going to work. Okay, agreed. But then capitalism isn't going to work as well. So what is your solution? Like, you want to talk about all foam and no beer. And by the way, don't talk about how, capitalism doesn't work. You own a winery, dude. You're worth millions of dollars. It's working just fine for you. And it's funny because I did a speech, actually broadcasting from Boston tonight, and I had to speak to this group about tax, mainly fraud and waste in government. That was kind of the theme. And all I know is I looked up waste in California, and just this one thing alone, which is very easy to comprehend. All right. Gavin Newsom has for years, 18 years, been wanting to build a railroad from San Francisco to Los Angeles, right? He talked about it before he was even governor, when he was mayor instead. And then once he got in office as governor, then this is something that he has touted over and over again. The original budget was supposed to be $33 billion, $33 billion. And if this thing was actually built, it could get you from LA to San Francisco, if you're on an express train, in about 2 hours and 40 minutes, which that's good. But the problem is now that it's going to cost, right now projected, so you know it's only going to go up, $126 billion. And the thing, there's barely a track built. Like this is going to, in our lifetime, this thing will not be completed. And so this guy, to talk about how he's going to be the great steward of the economy, but doesn't embrace capitalism and then doesn't embrace socialism. Well, then what do you embrace exactly? What's your plan, man? And if you see the way governor or the way California is run, the highest unemployment in the country, biggest exodus out of the state or out of a state, I should say, in the country, highest homeless rate in the country. And oh, by the way, no water in the fire hydrants during those wildfires. And as we stand today, you could count on two hands exactly how many homes have been rebuilt in the Palisades and in Malibu after 17,000 were lost. I think we've reached 9. So congratulations on that. And this guy's considered a front runner. I don't think so. Meanwhile, J.D. Vance may very well be running against Gavin Newsom. And he was on Joe Rogan's show yesterday. And, well, he thinks Gavin is full of you-know-what. And cut number 12, go.
Pass too broad of a brush here, but it's like, Gavin Newsom did this speech a few months ago. The president, I think it's the funniest thing ever because he's like speaking to a group of black leaders and black businessmen, but it's like an audience that is 95% black. And they're asking him about his dyslexia and his struggle with education. And he basically says, yeah, I'm not very smart like a lot of you. And it's like,
I'm like you. I can't even read. Meanwhile,
What?
there's a ton of interviews where he's talking about all the books he reads. Like he's so full of
yeah, he's full of but it's
admirably but I admire the sheer tenacity that he has.
Yeah, I counted 1, 2, 3, 4 full of spit, I guess we could say on the air without getting in trouble. And good thing we beeped that. Anyway, it's a great interview, by the way, because it's like two guys, real people, talking to each other. That's something you never get with Newsom. JD, by the way, ran against Tim Walz. That was his competition as far as the vice presidency. And Vance obviously cleaned his clock during the one debate between those two men. And now Tim Walz, again, the fact that this guy was a couple of swing states away from being a heartbeat from the presidency. As you may have heard, he pardoned a child molester. This monster, an illegal that was here, obviously illegally, that's repetitive, molested a 10-year-old girl. And then Walz pardoned him until Secretary of State Marco Rubio jumped in and they made sure that this guy was shipped out of the country back to his place of origin. So Walz, instead of just taking the L here, because I don't see how you possibly defend pardoning somebody like that. Well, he says that we all can't be judged on our worst day. Well, yeah, that's a pretty bad day. Cut number 13, go.
Well, speaking to the news media today, the governor was asked about the 42-year-old father's recent deportation.
Did that make us any safer? Did that make the children that are left behind any more stable? Did it improve the idea that we can't all be judged by our worst day?
We can't be judged by our worst day. Oh, so if you molest a little girl, well, we can't judge somebody on that little incident. Yeah, we can, especially if they already broke the law by coming into this country illegally. And he's still... How's it make Minnesota safer? I'd say infinitely safer if you have one less child molester in your state, Governor. Oh, man. And now he's not running for re-election again because of all that fraud in Minnesota that he can't run away from, and his presidential aspirations are done. So we'll be without Mr. Walz until he hosts his own weekend show on MS Now. But still. Meanwhile, this is where Democrats are coming from. And I've said this over and over again. Vote blue no matter who. And they really don't care. As long as they have power and as long as their radical policies, socialism, communism, Marxism, come into play. Here's Emma Vigeland. She's like an influencer, I guess, on social media, has a lot of followers. And she says the quiet part out loud here and doesn't seem to care, even if Democrats are actually secret Nazis. Yes, she says this. Cut number 14, go.
I've said this before. I don't really care if, say, like, Bernie Sanders or AOC go home and they're a secret Nazi, but they go out and they vote for the right things. Like, we're talking about
You don't
politicians
care?
as I mean,
I don't know about that. I think these are the lines that people are talking about. Some people care about that exact thing.
Yeah, they do. And yet she was fully in on Graham Plattner, the neo-Nazi tattoo guy. And she will vote for any of these insane socialists, even if they're completely anti-Semitic or worse, because, again, it's just all about power. Okay, before we go to break, this is one of my favorite clips, only because it's so disgusting. I don't want to say favorite. That's the wrong word. I think it just underscores exactly who some of these Democrats are and what they're voting for. And Joe Concha, who faked getting arrested in Israel, a la the Joe Biden South Africa going to visit Nelson Mandela playbook. Now he's back and bragging about how he is voting against funding for the Iron Dome, which basically keeps Israel in existence. Without an Iron Dome, it would be target practice on civilians all day for enemies that surround that country. And Joe Concha is now anti-Iron Dome that saves lives and keeps Israel as a country. But here he is anyway, because he also really, really, really wants to be president. Cut number 17, go.
I am voting yes on the Massey Amendment to zero out all aid to Israel. This includes zero aid for offensive or defensive weapons. I just don't see how the United States can support aid to a state that has committed genocide. And frankly, I do not see how we can continue to support a state that detains Americans and an American congressman like me.
So that's why? Because you got fake arrested? And now you're not going to give Israel any money for any military, including the Iron Dome, because they're committing genocide. Oh, that's great. Well, that all that is a wink and a nod to all the growing anti-Semitic voters out there on the Democrat side. And I guess Roe thinks that that'll be something that will help get him through the primaries in terms of going to the far, far, far left. If he gets more than 1% of the vote, I would be utterly shocked. Anyway, this is Joe Concha. This is the Joe Concha Show. We wrap this puppy up in just a moment.
This is the Joe Concha Show, weekday edition, sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Here's Joe Concha.
And welcome back, everybody. So, we have reached ludicrous speed, to quote the movie Spaceballs, 1987. The, I believe, 40-year anniversary will be celebrated by Mel Brooks, who just turned 100 years old just a couple of weeks ago, with Spaceballs 2, The Search for More Money. That comes out in 2027. Anyway, the reason why I bring up ludicrous speed is because we have our Candace Owens clip of the night, where now she's making the argument, and I'm literally rubbing my head as I say this, my forehead, because I'm massaging my brain, that somebody could be this insane. She thinks that Charlie Kirk was tapped by Bibi Netanyahu and the Israelis to kill her. And when he turned down that assignment, then they went after him instead for revenge. This is an actual argument this maniac makes on her stupid podcast. And believe me, she has enough listeners where they're believing what she's saying. Here you go. Cut number 18. Go.
I know what my gut has told me about the situation from the moment that it took place. I know what beyond my gut and beyond my dreams, the statement from Andrew Colbert, it was supposed to be you. Was it? Was it? Is it fair to ask if it's plausible that when Charlie was taken to the Hamptons, the phone call no one wants to address from Bibi Netanyahu, is it fair to ask the question if it was literally supposed to be me who was supposed to be back on tour with Charlie? Did he say no to killing Candace Owens?
Oh, yeah, we're here. We're there at this point. All right.
And then did he become a liability because he said no? What did Charlie turn down from Bibi Netanyahu while Erica was there?
Just making stuff up.
Again, the people that were present don't even want to acknowledge the phone call. I only got an acknowledgement that it happened from Erica in person, who then said, oh, he was just following up on a letter that Charlie wrote in May. Really? Bill Ackman's house, she put Bibi Netanyahu on the phone? And he's just like, hey, I got your letter. I want to talk about that letter from months ago. This feels like a good time. I don't buy
okay,
it,
that's
guys.
good enough. So her conclusion is that they must have talked about the murder plot to assassinate Candace Owens? But what? Oh, it's such an insult. And the way she mocks Erica Kirk still, and obviously saying that Erica had something to do with her own husband's murder on September 10th at Utah Valley University of last year. Boy, that's just, I'm choking on my own rage here. All right. Before we wrap this puppy up completely, Michelle Obama, can someone explain to me why this person is so miserable? You got to be first lady for 8 years, right? Your husband was a community organizer, was in the Senate for about 5 minutes, and because of luck and timing and doing a pretty good speech, he became president. And you had all those perks to go along with it. And now she has these podcasts where she just really, really likes to talk about herself. I can see why when you hear about, well, Barack wants to get as far away from Michelle as possible. If this is what I had to listen to every night at dinner, I'd probably want to get the hell out of there too. Anyway, here she is. Cut number 9, go.
This is how we treat women in public life. We diminish them to just what they look like and not what I'm saying now. I'm giving impassionate speeches. I think people know now that I can give a speech. Okay. That didn't just start happening. You know, I was always really good on the campaign trail. I was always a powerful orator.
Who talks about themselves this way? I was always a powerful orator. I gave great speeches. If you have to say it, maybe that might not be true. So, I mean, I guess she gives a pretty good speech, but I can never talk about myself that way. But that's the former first lady. Okay, let's do one more before we are done. I love this. Pete Hegseth, he is the Secretary of War, goes off on Sidney Blumenthal. Is it Sidney? No, Dick Blumenthal. I think there is a Sidney Blumenthal, but no, Dick, ironically enough, Blumenthal. The guy who lied about fighting in Vietnam when he didn't set foot in the country. Yeah, that guy. Well, anyway, here's Pete. Cut number 5, go.
Months into a historic military success in Iran, and you want to call it a defeat. And it's defeatist Democrats like you that cloud the mind of the American people and would otherwise fully support preventing Iran from having a nuclear weapon.
And that's the thing, right? I mean, Blumenthal has some balls going after Pete Hegseth, who has earned multiple awards, Bronze Stars, redeployed himself to go back into action after he finished his tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. And Dick Blumenthal, the guy who said, I was in Vietnam, I know what it was like. It was hard, so horrible. And it turned out none of it was true. So how this guy's a senator, I have no idea. Anyway, this has been the Joe Concha Show. We're back tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time on WABC in New York and on stations around the country, around the world. Until then, I got 2 words for you. Bye-bye.